Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 76 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr. It is June 8th, 2023, and for this feature, I have singer, songwriter, musician Mitch Malloy as my special guest. During this interview, Mitch and I discuss his brilliant new record, The Last Song. In addition, we talk about his time in the band Great White, in which he was a member from 2018 to 2022, his Van Halen tribute band, and his brief time as lead singer of Van Halen. So here he is, Mitch Malloy. Before we get started, please subscribe to the Rock Interview Series. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series. We have a great special today. We have singer-songwriter Mitch Malloy with us today. Mitch has a brand new record that's out called The Last Song. Mitch, how are you doing, man? And congratulations on the new record.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I've been working for a long time on this record, probably the longest I've ever done.
Yeah, it's really unique because right now you're offering your fans this great bundle package that they can purchase, and there's some really cool things in there. You want to elaborate a bit on what they can purchase right now?
Yeah, well, people that are vinyl people know that it's expensive. It's expensive to buy it. It's expensive to make it. So the guys that sing are really smart, great guys, Harry Hess and all those guys there. They said, let's just stack the deck. Let's give them all kinds of extras to go with the vinyl. So it feels like they're getting their money's worth. And I said, any suggestion you have, I'll do. I don't care what it is. I mean, within reason, of course, but so I pretty much just went down the list and did everything that they suggested, including a live concert. There's a thing called a golden ticket that some of the people are going to win, and they get a private concert with me. So that's one thing. And then there's two or three acoustic versions of the songs that they're the only ones who get them. I didn't put them online. And then there's a poster, there's 8x10, there's the CD comes with it. Everything's signed. And I'm forgetting a whole bunch of stuff because I did so much stuff.
There's a guitar pick, yeah.
Yeah, guitar pick. It's just a huge package, and people seem to really be excited about it. So it's going well.
Yeah, I have to admit that I looked at the package myself, the bundle, and it is a lot of bang for the buck. That's for sure. I mean, something like that you could probably charge almost double for it from what you're charging, but it's a really good package for a great record.
I don't feel like I can charge double for anything.
You released a single already from The Last Song called One of a Kind. Tell me a little bit about that song and making the video for that.
The songs on this record all came to me organically, like it's always been. I just write what comes out, and I'm a father, I have a 15-year-old girl now. And so that has really altered my skew of life and the world, right? Because, my life is dedicated to her and raising her. So a lot of the songs come from that, like more of a, father figure kind of a vibe, I guess. So I think, that song is not written for her per se, because she's like nearly the perfect kid. And that song is about somebody who isn't, on the right path. I like to encourage people in music. I don't, with all this crap that we've just been through, the world's been through, and artists feel a need to come out and talk about that. And that's their right. I just don't have that. I don't feel like it's everywhere. I don't think it should be an art. Yeah, I think the art should take people away from reality, not remind them of it. It's a pandemic. It sucks. I mean, I don't need to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I tend to keep the music more like uplifting. You know, I've always been like that.
Yeah. And it's also very unique too that you played all the instruments on this record, correct?
I did this and
Wow.
the record called Making Noise, which is Malloy.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I started on that record. I was in a hurry and I had done a whole bunch of records, and I realized that I was kind of playing every instrument on these records I was producing for these bands. And so I was like, well, I didn't suck at that. So that was pretty good. And that was all right. And, you know, obviously the singing, you know, is I've always done, but the other stuff I did some of on my records,
Mhm.
always, but not all of it. That just seemed insane to me, you know? And
Yeah.
I had friends encourage me to do it, like Bruno Ravel from Danger Danger always encouraged me to do that. He's like, dude, you play every instrument, you sing everything. Why are you just making records by yourself? And I'm like, huh? You know, that just seemed like crazy to me. But when I tried it, I did one song and it came out great. And I did another song and I was like, wow, I think I could do this. So on the last record, uh I started that on Making Noise. And so on this one, it was kind of a given that I kind of entertained. Maybe I'll have somebody play some leads because that's kind of my weakness, really. It's like kind of my Achilles is lead. But I just dug in and just I liked the leads that happened, and so I was fine with that. So I didn't really, you know. And then I have tons of guitar player friends who are like, "Dude, you're your lead guitar player now. You don't need me," you know, which is an amazing thing to hear from guys like that, like who are really great guitar
Yeah.
players. Yeah, so I'm
Not
crazy.
many musicians can pull that off. So I definitely have to compliment you to be able to do that. I mean, I don't hear any weaknesses in your lead guitar playing at all. I thought the leads on the record are really good. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's like, wow. I mean, for me, that's like a huge compliment because it's like I'm new at that kind of. I mean, I'm in like a bedroom like lead guitar player, like, you know, but I
Mhm.
never play on stage. Like, I don't, you know, the people who have come to see my shows, they almost never see me play lead during the show. I'm just like, nah, you do that. I'm going to perform, you know?
Yeah.
So that's probably why I never really got proficient at it because I knew I was never going to really have to do it live. But you know, then I started writing solos in my head, and like if I'm producing some great guitar player, and I'm like, oh, I love the part where it went like that, and then instead of that, how about going like this? You know, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So I found out that I had it in my head. So if it's in my head and it's in my hands, why not make it
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it happened. It was a natural progression to do that. I never thought I'm going to make a record all by myself. I just, I, it was all kind of out of necessity, you know, like
Yeah.
because I could, and actually the last record, I didn't have time to book players. I was in a hurry because I had a tour coming up. And then the promoter surprised me kind of with, oh, you need to have a new record. And I was like, you know, so I got to work and I did that. That's the fastest record I ever did, Making Noise. And this one, the last song is the slowest record.
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Do you find it easier to do it that way?
You know, well, I found that in a lot of cases as a producer, um, I was kind of having a lot of the ideas anyway. So not all, of course, you know, great musicians have their own thing. And, you know, when you realize greatness, you got to let it happen and try to nurture that. But a lot of times I would have the ideas. So I thought, well, if I have the bass idea anyway, or the kick drum should go like that instead of that, or what, you know, anyway, why don't I just do it myself? I mean, you know, I always kind of wondered why Mutt Lang doesn't do that because Mutt Lang has all that. Mutt Lang is, you know, those records, they're so brilliant because of him.
Yeah.
And I have friends who have been produced by him, right? And, you know, so they tell me how the process goes. And oftentimes they wonder why he's just not doing it himself because he can do all the stuff that's in his head.
Yeah.
You know, I think pretty much he
Mhm.
can. So a lot of what you do here, especially background vocals, a lot of that is Mutt. You know, that's why they sound the way they sound
Oh
on every
yes.
record that he produces because it's him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I mean not to compare myself to Mutt Lang because he's the king of the world, but anyway, he's kind of my hero. So
Do you have any plans to tour for this record?
yes, we're talking about that now, and that is developing, and I can't really announce anything yet, but we're working on that, and there are some definites. Yes.
I mean, what can you reveal? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, right now I can just tell you that it's just a few, right?
Hmm.
So it has, I haven't been offered to tour, or, it would be great to maybe open for somebody, I can't really do a headline tour. I'm just not that big of an artist. So it would have to be some sort of an opening kind of thing, which would be great, but that hasn't happened yet. So
I see.
maybe. Yeah.
Okay. I want
Yeah.
to talk about something that you were working on before you started working on, or before it was announced that you were working on your solo record. And that was the Mitch Malloy Van Halen experience. What's the status of that right now? When that was announced, I mean, I was like super excited. I was really hoping that, you would, bring that out to like Buffalo, New York, and bring that over here,
Is that
because
what you
really
are?
that what's that?
Is
Yeah,
that
Buffalo, New
what you
York.
are? Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
I think that would be like really like right at this point. I mean, other than seeing Sammy and Michael Anthony, I mean, that would be the closest you can get to, a real good Van Halen show.
Well, thank you. That's a huge compliment. That show initially, it was a year of Ed's passing, and I just wanted to celebrate Ed's, a year of Ed's passing, basically, and and I wanted to do it in a really big way. I wanted to, so I got some partners involved, and I'm still working with those guys. And I mean, like financial people, business people. So, because that's what it took, because it was a huge show, as you can
Yeah,
see in the videos.
right.
So, and then, we've had tons of interest to do it, like tons of inquiries, like a lot of interest, but the scheduling has just never worked out for the guys involved.
Hmm.
So, um, I'm going to incorporate some Van Halen in my show, in my live
Uh-huh.
show.
Yeah.
So it won't be a Van Halen show, but I'm going to incorporate Van Halen and some other bands that I have history with that some people don't know about, perhaps. And I'm going to kind of leave that right there. But the Van Halen show, it's not off the table to do it more. It's not. And you know, the guys I think all want to do it. It just everybody's busy and everybody has other things going on, and we haven't been able to see. The thing is, I don't want to do it lesser than what I already did, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
So that's a difficult thing when you have a new band that people don't really know and you're not a proven entity. It's hard to get the money that you need to be able to do a show that big.
Yeah.
We could easily go do clubs, you know, but that's just not. I just don't feel like that's Van Halen. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to honor Van Halen, I want to do it like, like Van Halen. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. It
so
seems like there's like a trend, at least I noticed in the area that I'm in. We do have like an actual like theater that does cater to like tribute bands. They have tribute bands play their like,
I think
national
I
tribute
know.
bands.
Go
The
to
Riviera Theater.
that. Yeah, yeah, they
Yeah,
were interested in us actually.
of course, and
Yeah,
I don't blame them, because you would probably sell that out and that would be a perfect venue. But I just kind of feel like, with music, the music scene the way it is nowadays, I kind of feel that there really is a market for that, like, straight up like, A-list type tribute bands.
yeah, there is, and they're out there. There's a bunch of them. I mean, there's one Zeppelin band that's just like jaw-droppingly good, and
Yeah.
there's Journey ones that are great, and but that's another thing too, believe it or not, like with Van Halen, it's the most tribute bands. I don't
Really?
know if you knew that. We
No, I did
found
not.
that out. Yeah, Van Halen has actually the most tribute bands.
Wow.
So in the marketplace, it's very difficult because a lot of those bands do well, and the buyers are happy with how they do. The buyers make money, the band makes money. And so that's already been going on for years. So for me to come in and introduce something like that's a little different, maybe a little bigger, And, they're like, yeah, well, bigger, but do I really need that? You know what I mean? So on a certain level, some of the buyers are just kind of like going, like, they're not sure. You know what I mean? They're like, why should I pay you X amount when I can pay them 10 times less and I still do business? And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the competition, there might not be a lot of competition, but there's a lot of competition.
Gotcha. Right. Well, you actually have real ties to Van Halen, unlike, all those other
Yeah, and
bands.
like
I mean,
nobody else.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's more legit,
Yeah, and
because
that's what
I
I'm
was,
saying, right? Because I mean that I think that that's the closest you can get someone who was actually like, in the band, for
yeah,
a moment in time. Yeah, can you
yeah,
elaborate a little bit on your time with Van Halen? Yeah, it was right
never heard.
around it was right around 1996, right? Right when Sammy left the band.
Yeah, that's the time frame that it was. It was August. In fact, I was looking through some old pictures the other day, and I found the picture of the DAT tape that he gave me to go home to write "It's the Right Time," the
Mhm.
backing music, "It's the Right Time," and specifically, I remember watching him. He took it out of the DAT player in 5150, and he took the little, it's like a little cassette. I don't know if you know what DAT
Yeah,
tapes
yep.
are,
I
but DAT,
remember those. Yep, yeah.
yeah. So, and he wrote, it's his handwriting on there. He wrote on there, and and handed it to me. He goes, "Okay, take this home and write it and record it, and either send it to me or bring it back when you come back." Like, okay, my marching orders from Eddie Van Halen. And so, yeah, it said August 16th, 1996 is what the date was on the
Okay.
picture of the DAT tape, that I guess
Wow.
I took back. Yeah.
That's probably
Yeah.
worth like $100,000, if not more.
Ah, really?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I'm sure you could get some
I
cash
could
for that
knock
if you ever
down my
just.
mortgage with that.
So
I could take a
so
chunk out.
what was it like, hanging out with Eddie Van Halen and working with him?
It was just like you would think. I mean, except that he's more self-conscious than I think most people would think,
Hmm.
or sweet than people would think. Um, he he was just so human, like he was insecure. Like before we hit the first note, he's like, "Oh, what song you want to do?" And I'm like, Panama. 'Cause that's my favorite Van
Right.
Halen song.
Yeah.
Okay. And he goes, "Fuck, man, I'm fucking nervous."
He was
And I
nervous?
said, yeah, he goes, "Oh," he talked like a pirate. I can't really do his voice because
Right.
he actually sounded like a pirate. Not only was he the greatest rock guitar player that ever lived, but when he spoke, he sounded like a pirate. I mean, the cool factor was off the charts with that guy. He
Wow.
was so cool, you know.
Yeah.
So he goes, I'm fucking nervous, and I was like,
Wow.
I reacted just like that. I'm like, you don't get to be nervous. You're Eddie Van Halen. I'm just Mitch Malloy. I'm nervous. And then we hit it, and yeah, it was awesome. It
Yeah.
was like, I don't think my feet were touching the ground when I was singing along to Van Halen. I I don't. I was floating. I was in 5150 floating. I was not even. It was amazing. Yeah, I still get
Wow.
chills when I think about it. Yeah,
Yeah. And the entire band was there at the time of rehearsing?
yeah,
Wow.
it was Van Halen.
Alex and
Yeah.
Michael. Wow. That's great. It must have been. I mean, I heard that you didn't want to continue with them after you saw David Lee Roth on the MTV Music Awards. Is that correct? That story?
Yes, I know it's hard to believe, but I just, when I saw that happen, I was shocked. I was shocked because I knew that they were going to do that presentation, but they didn't tell me they were going to go do it with Dave.
Yeah.
Right. So I was shocked, and I was thought, okay, this can never work. This won't work because everybody wants Dave now. And I mean, everybody wanted Dave already, including me, but everybody wanted that, I mean, everybody wanted the original Van Halen because it was so magical. But and then when they did that, then everybody expected Dave. Not only did they want him, but they expected him. And so, whoever suffered that fate wasn't going to be me.
Right. And then it never panned out at that time, at least. Then Gary Sharon became involved. What did you what did you
Well,
think of that? Go ahead.
They
I'm sorry.
never, Dave was never on the slate. Like Dave, that was never, they just did that as a publicity stunt because MTV made them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is Ed told me, he called me to explain, what happened and to apologize. And, MTV made them do that. And I don't know if maybe it was even a surprise to Ed, like last minute kind of thing, because he never said anything to me about it. So maybe he was just afraid to tell me about it, or I don't know. But I was shocked, and I thought, okay, you guys just screwed yourself. You might be Van Halen, but like you're still susceptible to people's opinions, and so to me it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So I sent them a letter, and I had my manager type up a letter and send it to them, and that's all in the documentary thing, the Lost Boy documentary.
Yeah. And then they released what many consider probably the weakest album of their career with Gary Sharon. And nothing against Gary Sharon. I mean, he's a brilliant vocalist. It didn't seem to work for some reason. And what did you think? When you heard the Van Halen 3 record, I'm assuming you did hear it. What did you think of it?
It was actually years later. I was in North Dakota visiting my friend Todd, and he forced me to sit down in his studio and listen to it because I'd never listened to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reminded of some of the music that I didn't like that Ed played for me when I was there.
Oh,
he was playing me music, and people think that that's crazy. Who am I to say that even? And that's why I haven't said it really until now. And plus I didn't want to insult Ed because I love Ed. But the music that he was playing for me, his new music, I didn't like it.
Wow.
So I'm just sitting there going, okay, I'm sitting here across from the greatest guitar player that ever lived, who I adore, who I grew up on, freaking worship this band, worship him. And I'm about to co-write with him. Yeah, I'm ready, let's go, and he's playing me this music, and I'm just like, it's not moving me. And I can't fake music. I can't fake it. I can't. I mean, the music that I do is real. Like it or love it, it's real, and people who say it's not, I mean, they're wrong. It's real. And so I just couldn't, he's playing me this music, and I just didn't feel it. I was just going, okay, I don't hear really a melody for that, and I don't hear any phrasing for that, and I don't,
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, when I co-write with people, it's normally like just ideas. And I start singing into my device, whatever, and it's gonna go ba 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 ba, and then the lyric, oh yeah, ba ba ba, yeah. It's like it just happens. But with him, nothing happened.
Wow. Yeah, and you can't really say anything because it's Eddie Van Halen, right?
And he's playing his music.
Yeah.
If I didn't like him, I'm not an asshole. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
if you played music, hey, Mitch, I want you to hear my music. And even if I hated it, I wouldn't tell you I hated it. You know what I mean? I can't. It's not how I'm wired,
Yeah.
I'm honest, but I'm nice, I mean, I care about people's feelings, right? So it's Eddie Van Halen, and he's playing me music that I don't like.
Wow.
Sue me, kill me, shoot me, whatever.
So in retrospect, it probably was a great decision.
I didn't kill Van Halen. Somebody else did.
Yeah. Just for a moment. I mean, and then they resurfaced and did all right till the end. Yeah.
Sure. Van Halen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Did you have any other offers after that from other bands to join them before the Great White gig came up? I imagine you probably would be in pretty high. Excuse me, pretty
Yeah.
high demand at that point, right?
Yeah, it's funny because even before the Van Halen thing, there were some really interesting uh, things that happened, and I don't ever talk about this, and I don't think he would mind. But Barry Goudreau called me
Oh wow,
from
from
Boston,
Boston, yeah.
right? So he had RTZ, and
Hmm.
he wanted me to come and sing for RTZ, and he didn't have Brad Delp apparently at the time, because if he did, why would he call me? You know, and that worked out for him. That Brad ended up being the singer for that, and Brad actually came and visited me in my dressing room. We were on a show together, and there's a knock on the door, and it's Brad Delp come to my
Oh,
trailer to tell me he loved my voice. And I was just like, I almost cried. It was just like, oh my God, you're Brad Delp. All I could say was, you're Brad Delp. I just totally went into like moron fan mode. Right. It
yeah.
was like, I was so shocked by the fact that I'm staring at Brad Delp, who came and knocked on my door. Amazing. Anyway, so yeah, Barry Goudreau called, and I couldn't do it because I was already kind of in line to everything was leading to, I was going to have a solo career and all
Yeah.
that. So the people that did call during that time, I said no to. There was a couple others. A keyboard player from Foreigner also was doing something. He called, and there weren't any major bands like Foreigner didn't
Right.
call.
You'd be
If
great
they
in
had,
Foreigner. I mean, yeah,
I
you would kill it.
heard they called. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think Kelly's a better choice actually than me.
Mm.
He's able to really remind people of Lou way more than I ever would have been able to.
You think so? You
You
think
know,
he'd, yeah. I think he's a
I
great
don't
vocalist. I don't really get the Lou
he
thing
reminds
though.
people.
I don't think
Really?
no, no. I mean, it seems like he does borrow a lot of like, Lou's like little nuances for the song, but I think his voice per se, I don't think his voice
Well,
sounds like,
he sounds like him.
yeah, exactly. Right,
He
right.
sounds
He does a great
the way
job.
he's hitting. Yeah, the way he's hitting things is closer, I think, to Lou than I could ever get.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's a better. And I told Mick that when I met him. I
Hmm.
met Mick. I met those guys backstage in Paris, actually. Um, and I got to have dinner with them. And I was sitting right next to Mick, and I was like, I'm the second best choice for this band. That guy's the best choice. So
Yeah.
yeah, and he was sweet.
I
Great
want to
guys.
next talk about your time in Great White, which was from 2018 to 2022. Tell me how you became involved in Great White.
That happened, I would say, primarily because of Sullivan Big, the agent. I don't know if you know.
I've heard of it. Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, uh, Big Time Entertainment. Yeah, he kind of took me on as my agent, and he booked me M3, which was amazing, and then the cruise, which was equally amazing. And apparently, like, some of the guys in Great White came to see my show, unbeknownst to me. I was told that people were coming, like, oh, there's a lot of bands here, but I never saw them because there's so many people. I never, like, Rockstar, not rock, I never saw anybody. I never saw anybody famous in the crowd, but apparently there were a bunch of them. And so I had been producing my whole life. I've been in the studio, living in the studio for 47 years now. Basically, I added it up. It's 47 years. Had a studio and been living in it literally almost the entire time. And I just got burned on it. I went into my wife's office one day and said, send everybody their deposits back. I'm closing. I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I can't keep doing this. I was just burnt,
Mm.
And so I called Sullivan and I said, I just closed my studio. So I want to do more shows. I want to do, whatever you can get. Cause I was really like, he was like, well, I'm not going to be able to get you that many shows. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm busy. Don't just get big ones. And that's fine. I'll just do a few shows, So that was kind of our mutual agreement. And so I called him to kind of let him know that my life had just altered. I just altered my life. So it was just like 2 weeks later, he called and he's like, I have something you might be interested in. Do you want to sing for Great White? And I was like, huh? like it really took me like, I wouldn't have ever thought of that, even though, I mean, I guessed it. I got up and sang with them on the cruise. They invited me to come up and just sing backgrounds, and they invited me and a bunch of other singers, but none of the other ones showed up. So it was just me. That's how that worked. They probably wouldn't even have noticed me if there were other, singers, but it was just me. So I think they noticed, when I was on stage with them. And yeah, I don't know, like it just kind of happened. I think it was a combination of those two things. And honestly, as a producer, I didn't think that my voice fit them at all. Like I was like, the initial question for me, that's where I went first. Like, huh? Like Lover Boy, yes. Sticks, yes. And there's others, but Great White, I don't hear that, So I had to audition myself, basically, before I would really agree to do it. Initially, I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. But I mean, I was like, yeah, interesting. Like I wasn't going to say no. I was like, yeah, okay. Can they send me some backing tracks and I can sing on them and see? And he goes, yeah, we're on it, So that's how that happened. So my favorite Great White song was Rock Me.
Great song.
The one that I knew the most and the one that I really liked, So I put that on. It was a live version of Rock Me from them, like a board tape or whatever, our tape that Lardy had mixed, from the live stuff, and sent it. And I started singing it, and I was like, holy shit, this works. And I'm like, hang on a second. I push stop and I listen back and I'm like, hell yeah, this works. How does this work? How does the timbre in here work with that? Like, but it just did, and so I finished Rock Me. They sent me like 5 songs. I did Rock Me and I sent it to him and he was like, his text was like, holy shit balls, like exclamation points. And I was like, no, right? I'm just as surprised as you are. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like a from producer to producer kind of thing, like this works. Maybe we should do this, and that's how that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, what was your first show like with them? How did the fans react to you being their new lead vocalist?
It was amazing. It was, I expected way more pushback or blowback than I got in general. Overall, the first show, I got to say, it was in Washington State. Like, we flew into Seattle and then we took the van up. It's quite a ways up, somewhere in Washington State, some outdoor thing. And I think it was with Queensryche. Yeah. George Lynch opened, I think, and then we went on, and then Queensryche was headline, something like that. I might be forgetting somebody, but I was so nervous, like, oh my God, nervous, like Leno nervous, almost, like it was really nervous. Yeah. But I'd prepared and prepared and prepared and prepared. I had their backing tracks. I had been singing with them, for 2 weeks. It was about 2 weeks, 10 days. I think I told him after about the 7th day, I was ready. First day, I was horrible. Second day was terrible. Third day, really bad. Fourth day, 5th day, 6th day, get better, And the 10th day, I was like, I texted them. I said, I'm ready. And they were like, really? So they moved me up because they were going to have me come in after the summer, I think. Yeah. And then when I said, I'm actually ready, I could do a show. So they bumped me up to July or something. June or something like that. So yeah. I didn't get a lot of, obviously people online, some people, you suck,
of course.
You're not, you're not Jack. Like, yeah. And Jack's not me. And I'm not Dave and Dave's not me and whatever,
Right. I mean,
So
there's, I
stupid.
mean, Jack Russell, I mean, those are hard shoes to fill, but I mean, you're not really trying to fill his shoes. You're trying to just sing his songs
Yeah,
and,
wear my own
because he's
shoes.
not there. Right. Exactly. Right.
My shoes.
Right.
Yeah, just that's the approach that I did. I honor absolutely honor him and what he did with them and what they did with him. And you have to. I mean, some of it is just great. It
Yeah.
really is. And so I had to honor that because again, as a producer and a songwriter, and you have to honor that. I mean, when something's great, you have to honor it and try to do it, you know? So I would try to kind of phrase things similar, but honestly, I didn't want to be a copycat, right? So I didn't listen much to what he did. You know, I would just learn the song. And then a couple of times they had to correct me because I was doing some of initially like really my own phrasing, you know, and they
Mhm.
were like, oh, that's cool. But, you know, the record goes, ba. And only maybe 2 times they did that for me. And
Yeah.
so I adjusted. Sorry. And yeah, that's right. You know, but mostly I was doing my own thing. And then as the years passed, I was doing more of my own thing, more of my own thing, more of my own thing, which the fans seemed to like it. I mean, live, the fans were like, wow, it was it was awesome.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, you guys were really on the roll, and then all of a sudden COVID hit and derailed everything.
it did. Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
Screwed everything up.
Did
Yeah.
during that time, did you discuss writing a record at all? Did Great White discuss doing that during that time?
Yeah, we were bouncing things around from right away. You know, Mark was sending me things, you know, right away, almost like right when we first started. So we bounced the thing and we did a couple of demos, you know, where he sent me an idea and there was one thing where he had a guitar part, you know, kind of like a backing. That's what he had. And so I took that and I put a band around it, you know, because I am a
Yeah.
band. It's kind of and sent it back to him. And he's like, holy shit, you know, because like I sent it back to him the next day, you know, and he loved it, you know. But so yeah, we had a couple of things, but nothing ever concrete. And I wanted to make the record like that because we couldn't be together. So and I'm really, you know, self-sufficient, proficient in the studio and can do a lot of things. And those guys all had a way to do it, but it ultimately that's not how they're used to working. They're used to all being in a room together and making a record together. So when they kind of put that to me, I was like, oh, okay. So then I stopped pushing the idea of let's make a COVID record, you know, like because they just didn't want to do that. That was on them. That I was in, full in.
Wow.
They, yeah, they just didn't want to do it. Yeah.
I mean,
So
I guess, what a great time to make a record, I suppose, because I mean, there's really nothing else
I know
going
it's
on.
tough.
I mean, and a
I
lot of
made
these,
3 records.
yeah, yeah, right. I mean, a lot of these bands that, went through that whole period, like, the last 5 years without releasing a record. I mean, what's your excuse? I mean, you had 2 years where you didn't go out on the road.
Yeah, and I couldn't make my own records because I was in Great
Oh,
White.
right.
I would have made I would have made my own record, like, you know,
Hmm.
it would have been called The Last Song.
Right. And well, back to Great White for 1 second, but I want to touch on that and after this. You left Great White in 2022, and it was because of I think it was creative differences, or I mean, was that the official term that you guys used, the parts?
I never had an official term because I
No?
never
Okay.
released until now. I don't know what the official term is. Whatever they said.
Yeah.
How about that?
So was it your decision to leave the band at the time, or were they moving on from you, or what was it?
I actually left a couple of times. Uh, I just it's a frustrating situation for me, um, for a lot of different reasons that I don't need to really get into. I don't see any real point in. It's too easy to, you know, talk about bad stuff. I just prefer not to do it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I wasn't happy. Um, it wasn't really fun anymore, and it was a lot of work, hard work. One of the hardest jobs I've ever had, actually.
Really?
People don't understand. People don't understand that because they see you on stage and they see all this wonderful, the crowds there, and they don't see what we had to do to get there, right? So it's very difficult way to live, and I did not enjoy that aspect of it. It was, just really, really hard. So, yeah, I mean, I, yeah, it's kind of a long story, and I guess people probably interested in hearing my version of it, but I don't know. I just don't really feel like that's needed. I don't want to. I don't want to hurt their fans as well by saying negative things. I mean, when you're in a band, it's a relationship like the old cliche, and you don't always get along, and it's five guys and different opinions, and it was tough. It was time for me to go.
Yeah. And plus, most of your career, you were a solo artist. So, I mean, you were the guy in
Yeah, yeah,
charge. It was your way or the highway type of thing. And now you're in a situation where, like, you have five guys, and all kind of equal at the same point. So, yeah, I can understand that. I respect that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Three of them are equal, and
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a little. Yeah, they didn't. I was always shocked when they'd ask me my opinion on anything.
Hmm.
Like one time, Audie asked me about what I thought the color of the new backdrop should be, and I was shocked. And I gave him my opinion, but I was like so shocked that he asked me, you know. So I didn't really have anything to do with anything except for my performance leading that band on stage. That's that was my job. That's how I saw it, and that's something that they couldn't mess with. That's what I did, and I was going
Yeah.
to do that how I do it. And that's how the only way you can do it successfully is if you do it how you do it.
Oh,
Then
absolutely.
it's real.
Yeah.
Crowd can tell it's real. They're like, wow, he's into it. And I was. That was real. The shows were fantastic. That
Hmm.
part was awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
That
I don't think you
Go
guys
ahead.
ever played in this area in the Buffalo area with you in the lineup, but I of course watched the YouTube videos and you killed it. I mean, a lot of energy and like you said, your voice fit well with the songs. It was a little different, but it was good. It fit.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Surprisingly, to me, and I think a lot of people, I did get those messages like from some of their fans, like, private messages on the socials, like,
Yeah.
you know, when I heard you were the new singer, I thought this will never work, but it does. I would get that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh well, I appreciative of the time with them, and and loved aspects of it. Loved. So, yeah.
Yeah. Back to the title of your new record, the last song. That doesn't in any way like imply that this is your last record, does it?
Maybe.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I I doubt it. I mean, I'm working now on some other things. Um, so I'm not going to talk about what they are because I want to talk about the last song because that's what's, on deck.
Yeah.
So that's proof that it really isn't. And honestly, that song, when you hear that song, it it lays it out for you that it's not my last,
Hmm.
right? Because it's
Yeah.
not about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm living my life like it's the last song.
Hmm.
Boom.
Gotcha. All right.
That's what
Um,
that's about. Yeah.
yeah. Well, Mitch, I really appreciate your time. I want to end the interview by asking you a question. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to it, but I wanted to ask you what you feel your biggest highlight of your career has been so far.
Well, there's really two, and they're pretty equal. And that was my Leno
Yep.
performance, and of course Van Halen. You know, so those two things are by far the top for me. Yeah.
Yeah, the Leno performance you mentioned before, how nervous you were. Give us a little detail on that day for you and and that
I can't.
when
It's
you
still
first
painful.
when you first heard about that. I mean, tell me about that, the time how you heard about that you were gonna, you were asked to be on his show.
Yeah, my manager called and he said it's booked, and I'm like, "What's booked?" Leto. I was like, "Yes." So that was a huge, huge phone call, and yeah, just super excited. And the band was amazing, obviously, and everything was amazing. The sound was amazing. The staff was amazing. Everything. Jay was amazing. Couldn't have been nicer. Wow. I mean, my whole life, I dreamed of being on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, that's
And
huge.
yeah, and Johnny Carson was gone, but it was still the Tonight Show. So, and Jay's no slouch. I mean, he crushed that. He was amazing at that. And some would say even as good as Johnny, I would
Hmm.
say. Um, so wow, what an honor that was, and what a treat. And yeah, it was one of those things again where I just felt like I was floating all day and not even touching the ground. When the band started and the song started, my knees were actually shaking. That whole knees knocking thing.
Hmm.
Oh, you think, what? How could anybody be that nervous? What would even cause that? You know what I mean? But it's happened twice in my life, and that was the second time. The first time was when I auditioned for Polygram Records in New York, and luckily we were in a basement and they couldn't see my legs, but my knees were shaking.
Wow.
I was
What
like, "What's going
what year was
on?"
that?
Oh God.
Was that for your band Malloy?
No, that was the band Infinity.
Oh, before that
That
then,
was
right?
Malloy. Yeah, I was in
Wow.
a band called Infinity with David Rosenthal, the keyboard player from Rainbow.
Okay.
Yeah, who's now with Billy Joel and been with Billy Joel for decades.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah. And he's been with Robert Palmer, Cyndi Lauper. He played keyboards for everybody. Um, so he recruited me to be in his band, and then it became our band, and it was called Infinity. And it's like sort of an East Coast Toto sort of band. People can look that up. There's a record out there. It's demos, but it's out there. It's called Infinity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
good to
me
know.
at my first ever in the studio, and I sound young, and I sound like it's crazy. It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out. Yeah, the thing about the Tonight Show, I interviewed Billy Sheehan recently, and he said the same thing. That was the highlight of his career when he played the Tonight Show with Mr. Big.
Yeah. God. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
What a
so
massive. I bet his knees weren't shaking though.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe I didn't ask him that. He didn't say, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure he was very nervous. Yeah, that's a huge gig. That's a good feather in the cap. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Some great things have happened along the way, and I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, I hope many more happen for you, Mitch. And again, thank you for your time. And
Yeah.
I hope you get out here to Buffalo. I'll definitely
Yeah.
be there and we'll do a nice review for it too.
Yeah. I'll keep you in mind if that does happen.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch, and best of luck with the record. And everybody out there, check it out. The last song, great record. Get the
MitchMalloy.com.
bundle. All right.
Yeah. MitchMalloy.com.
All right,
Okay,
Mitch.
guys.
All right. See
Thanks.
ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.